I'd like to say that in respect to what you just said, Ricky, that I was noting in the notes that I am very acutely aware of time, that I'll wake up in the night and just go, it's 3:36, and I'm usually within 5 minutes. And then I reflect now to 2 weeks to slow the spread. And it's like how adaptable we are. Like, oh, I'm going to wait till January 6th. I'm going to wait till January 20th. And it's like, next thing you know, 2021 is gone. So really make the most of your life and enjoy it. I recently did a hypnosis, and I didn't know that we were going to do a past life regression. And in the end, she's like, well, I'd like to offer you a midlife review. And I'm like, sure, put that in my cart. I mean, I didn't say it like that, but I thought it. And I was in a hypnotic state. And then I'm like, wait a second, what are we doing? And she said, well, I'm going to nullify, you're not going to die, but you're nullifying all your contracts. And I went ahead and did it. And then I got Steven Johnson syndrome and almost died, which is a very bad allergic reaction. And my skin all boiled up, and it was like I symbolically died. I had new skin. I had to peel. But while we were doing the regression, when we came to this life, I sometimes see words across my forehead, and I just saw the word hijack, and I got really, really angry, and I felt like they've hijacked life. And I don't know if any of you who study NDEs, or if you can relate, that's something with this Rona regime. Life was challenging enough, and now there's this burden. And then I also just wanted to ask if we're typically taught that the light at the end of the tunnel is positive. And when I did a dig, they believe, occultists, that it's do anything, but if you don't want to reincarnate, just avoid the light because it's a trick. So if you can maybe comment on that, or the hijacking part of in regards to the Rona.
I'd like to jump in on that if I may. Is that okay? The unitive state of being is the dissolution of self and the obliteration of self. And I don't know whether going to the light means reincarnation, but in subsequent mystical experiences and out-of-body experiences, I traveled much deeper into the oneness of being, and I want to be nothing. I want to be in the state of pure union, because in the state of pure union, I am no longer myself. If anybody, has anybody here ever had a Kundalini awakening, where there's a flash inside yourself and you are no longer present? In that kind of experience, the egoic mind vanishes altogether, and you become the light itself. And when one becomes the light itself, there is no more reincarnation. There's only the divine presence. And that's what the mystics talk about, the mystical geniuses around the history of the world. That's the goal. And that's found in their writings, Cloud of Unknowing, as a single example. So as for me, I've heard that story that don't go to the light, but I've met ghosts who've not gone to the light, and they've been stuck here. And I send them to the light so that they can continue to progress. But as for me, all I want is the light. I want the totality of the light. I want no more incarnations. If I have a choice, I won't come back. If I have a choice, I'd rather continue on my journey, because I don't think evolution ends on Earth. I think that my soul continues to go deeper. How can you go into the center of infinity? It's a constant, continuous journey, and that's the one I want. And I don't try to tell anybody what to do or tell anybody what to think, but I know where I'm going, and I know what I want, and that's what I want.
That kind of leads me to one of my questions about those people, the elite and the secret societies, and then those that know that maybe, there is another life. And you hear these in the conspiracy circles, you hear these theories about them coming back purposefully into the same bloodline, or to remember things that they've done. Or that's why it enables them to play this long game, decade after decade, the long plans. I mean, anybody that's had this experience, do you think that there's anything to that, or is it not possible?
I think anything's possible, but I've never heard of anybody remembering their life without a lot of work. And I think that the epigenetics is true. Like was said earlier about the mouse experiment. I think that's the science is showing that there's a reality to that. But once you travel to the other side and you experience the divine nature, the material world has no value. That's why people who have near-death experience, we are like, the big house, not so much. It just doesn't matter so much. So if there are people doing that, I don't know where it is that they go, but they didn't go where I went.
Well, you guys know that Prince Philip quote, right? If he was reincarnated, he'd like to come back as a deadly virus to lower the population. How crazy is that, right? It's crazy. Yeah, I mean, it's all super interesting. I know I've been calling on Miriam for about an hour now. Miriam, do you finally want to jump in?
Oh, yeah. Hi, everyone. So before I jump into my NDE, I had a spiritual awakening at 13 when I went to Sunday school and learned that Mark was a boy in our class was hit by an 18-wheeler and dragged across the street. And then eventually was in a coma, and then he died. And I became obsessed at 13 listening to Art Bell and trying to do out-of-body experiences. And I got really close. And then as I was doing it one night, I heard a voice saying someone else might come in to your body. And that was not a 13-year-old's thought. And it freaked the hell out of me, and I stopped doing it. The boy that died, I would commune with him and talk to him, ask him where he went, and ended up having lots of magical experiences. Starting with being in Cuba many years and had just prayed and asked where he was, and there were two people on the beach, two girls, and they asked me my ethnicity, and they asked me if I was Indian. I said I'm Egyptian. And this is in Cuba. She's like, oh, I used to know a boy, an Egyptian boy, but he was hit by a truck. And it turned out she was in his class, and she got to tell me about the memorial. And then flash forward, I was 29, and my height of my, what's it called? Your 29 in astrology, your Saturn return. And I was outside of the Bodhi tree, and I was hit by an SUV at 35 miles an hour, and they dragged me into the adjacent. So I left my body and I became nothing and everything. And I heard the words Noti Setom, which I'm not pronouncing, but it's know thyself. And came back into my body and made sure not to lose consciousness because I wanted to report on what was happening. And flash forward, I spent a week in the hospital. I broke many bones. I had outfitted with a metal rod, 13-inch metal rod. And when I left the hospital, everything seemed really crisp and I heightened my intuitive skills. We all have intuitive skills, but I went to the California School of Psychic Medicine and learned how to ground. And, lights would go off, and it's only amped up my psychic skills, which is not easy to share but I have visionary skills. And then I went on to make Vanishing of the Bees because I was kind of floating aimlessly and asked, please let me be in service and let me do something with my life that's bigger than me. And the bees flew into my life, and I made Vanishing of the Bees. And then I was a digital nomad, and I was going to Greece. And flash forward, I'm in Delphi, where the bee goddesses were, and I saw on one of the artifices it said Noti Setom, which is know thyself. And I really believe that I'm here to just practice mindfulness, and I think that's what's missing.